Hi, and welcome everyone. This is Varleigh at Lavender Sky Panther with you on Saturday, August 15th, 2026 at 7 p.m. Eastern this time. I actually intended for the show to go on at 8, but something happened, and on my cover sheet I put 7. So I said, okay, let's do it at 7. So anyway, it's kind of like in keeping with the theme. We're going to be looking at sky krakens and things. So it's kind of like 7, like the 7 seas. And I invite you to take a look at what that means. I had to look that up, the expression, in the 7 seas. Well, that's all relative to where you are on the earth. So if you're in the Mediterranean, 7 seas might look different than if you're over, toward Australia. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. Anyway, welcome. It took a bit to get on. I was ready to go, but YouTube was throwing the old snafu on me. So it just took a bit to get in. All my other, tech is good. So I know it's not on my end. But anyway, today's topic, it's a fun one. I did just drop in probably within the last hour. I dropped in the post section a very interesting video that we're going to be referencing on the show, and I'll put it in the description area below too after the show. But it has to do with this whole Stormy Night Skies, KRAKEN DRAGONS theme, which is the title of the show. And I'll just put this up to market, and here we go. So this is live number 45. And so we'll get into this. Now, the key crux of this whole show started off with, I just kind of wanted to earmark or, kind of dog ear page on this little segment of some of my sky watching. I've said before, I have over, 200 shows at the beginning of my whole channel. That's what started this whole thing. From there, I just kind of morphed and changed and grew. But some of the key observations that I did day in and day out of the skies, sunrises, sunsets, and everything in between, catching a ton of cloaking craft, ton of sky anomalies, that's all sitting in the first 200 shows. So anyway, there was a key moment, and I put the link already in the post section to one of my shows. I caught, and I've highlighted this too on a previous show, for that like knife, that kitchen knife shaped, like chef's knife shaped cloak and craft that I caught backlit by some lightning. And that was in June of 2021 in Miami. And I have on the cover, Florida, and then Nuremberg and Germany. There was a similar kind of knife shaped, UFO. I don't have the picture with me, but it's on one of my previous lives. Anyway, my point is, in that same storm system in June 2021 over Miami, Florida, I caught another anomaly, which I mentioned in the reference show. And there was just like that other kitchen knife shaped UFO was caught by a flash of lightning happening in the background. I'll say lightning in quotes because it was clear it was an artificial electrical storm. It was not natural lightning. And through that whole show, I show you, because I catch moments where lightning is being like shot at one craft to the other, coming down and up from the sky in weird ways with other craft. It's a pretty wild, freaking wild show, and I highly recommend you go see it. But anyway, toward the last half of that show, or last third, there's another flash of lightning that's backlighting more craft. And I thought, oh, okay. And I'm going to show you in a minute. But craft seemed to be going in opposite directions. So I know it's craft because clouds don't, do that. And then the backlighting also, though, captured these intertwining. They look like tentacles, or like if you took a vine and, really chunky, huge ass, like a Jack and the Beanstalk vine and intertwined it. That's what this looked like. And then that got me thinking about the concept of, wait a minute, that might be a bioorganism. I don't think that's, craft. That's nothing technical or mechanical. It looks very organic. And I don't know what it's doing, but in my mind, just kind of the idea of this huge, colossal sky kraken, was in my mind when I saw it. Now, I didn't know what to do with that because, I didn't know anyone else at the time that had, quote unquote, captured a scene like that. Although later on, it came to my attention from a very popular show. I'm sure you know him, the Earth and Sky Watcher. I'll put the link, in the description area below. But he had a follower send in a video, and it also looked like a sky kraken. Now, I know my footage is legit. I can't corroborate or vouch for the other person's who was submitted. I'm going to show it though, and I put it in my post section, and I still highly recommend you look at it. I'm on the fence with it because it looks like their footage. It's this sky dragon or kraken lifting up with these big wings drooped down, and it's got like these intertwined again tentacle looking things, and it rises up. And the reason why I think it might be legit is it's got the perfect symmetry, yes, but it's even got little details of like little point lights or light shining through like a moth's wing of these dragon wings coming down. Also, the way the lightning balls and cracks are coming through, and again, they feel very artificial to me. They seem to be coming in front of it, sometimes in back. So, if it is some type of like movie production, now this again, this is going to be from 2021 that you see this someone else's footage from out in California from May 2021. I'm on the fence now if it's legit or not. I feel like it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody came and said, no, it's a really good, like CGI'd thing. But I still am leaning toward it's legit just because a month later, I captured these two huge, massive tentacles intertwining that were backlit by a storm as well. And so I believe it's legit. The thing is that even if it isn't, the other footage from California, it almost, it matters, but it doesn't matter. Because the point is, we're getting at a concept here of there being colossal, giant cephalopod, whether it's more bulbous head as, the octopi versus the more arrow, torpedo head of the giant squid. Now, supposedly, there are real cases of 40 to 50 foot long, whether it's the octopi or the squid, I don't remember, washing up on shore from deep ocean. So I'm just saying, I'm sure they exist deep in the ocean. And then it brings up the question of what's going on up in the sky. And I will get to the illustrations too in a minute. I only have 2 slides today. But I just want to kind of descriptive, be descriptive, your storytelling style, describe this first, and then we'll get into images. But it brings, into mind what's going on with the sky. Also in my post section, I put other examples of nighttime video I took when there's lightning flashes, backlighting stuff up there. And I highly recommend you go out and do it if you're not doing it already. Just take a simple camera phone. And if there's a quote unquote lightning storm going on and you're in a safe distance, like not going to get hit by a bolt, a stray bolt or anything, hold up the camera and just let it roll for a while. Make sure you got enough memory on there. And just, even if it looks pitch black and you just see flashes, keep the camera steady rolling. Because then later you go in and you look at the footage and just hit play on the footage, the video footage, then hit pause, and then swipe your finger if it's on a handheld device, and just go frame by frame by frame. And that's how I caught some of these images with the backlit, lightning backlighting craft and this organic looking thing. So you just go frame by frame by frame. And as the lightning flashes, you catch some remarkable stuff. You really can. Anybody can. So anyway, that's what I had been doing with this. That's what this other person apparently did in California. So let me just get to, again, refer to the post section for the raw footage on everything. But here's what I'm driving at with these 2 examples of Florida and California. And then we'll get into more fun stuff about krakens and krakens in lore, krakens in movies, and all that kind of stuff too. But anyway, just at a distance, I'm going to show you. So this is not so clear. That's why I recommend you go to the video I have in the post section of mine. But at a distance, I'm across the street. This is foliage just, above a roof line of a house. So this whole thing, I'm looking into the north sky. It's an expansive sky. There's a little bit of tree lining here, okay? But I'm looking across the street. This is like the top of a palm tree, okay? So what I had noticed with the backflash of quote-unquote lightning was that we've got one cloaking craft moving this way, another moving this way, and there are other weird objects with straight lines and corners and edges. That's why I know these are craft hiding in there. And then this came down. So this is like one of those, I'll call it a tentacle, coming down from this darker cloud and then swirling around. It looks like it's going around an object. And then another one like coming straight down, or there's an object here and it's tucked behind it. But it's definitely like there's a crisscrossing of that material, whatever this, or I'm going to call it organic tentacle, is crisscrossing with this one. This one, and then this. Oh my gosh, it's hard to do this mirrored. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've got this arm coming down, and then there's another one tucked behind here, like going behind and up. And so literally, it's intertwining. So again, it felt organic to me. There was in this scene at that time, the knife, kitchen knife looking cloak and craft, the black one, was traveling around going this way into a cloud. There was another weird, spherical shape thing going off into another direction. There was so much weird stuff going on in the sky. I think it was June 22nd, around there, 2021, but craziness going on in the sky. Now, this one is the one from California, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit again. Look at the post section, but this is a wing coming down. This is another wing drooping down. This is the torso or the body, and there are these weird, like tentacle-like things coming down. And so if you can imagine, this is like a wishbone shape or like a V. The V is the top of this being, and it just was like lifting up. Now, even in the video, the commentator was saying, oh, it's like an updraft of, he was just calling this weather storm. He didn't acknowledge the being in there. He was just implying that it was there. But anyway, this thing just like lifts straight up in the air with the lightning going all around it in intermittent flash as you see it. And again, mine, intermittent flash, these are massive. And there's going to be better examples of it coming up. Here, I might as well just jump to it. Better examples are in my post section. But here again, something happened funky with the printer when I printed this out. But you can see this is the footage from California with the backlit lightning flashes. And these are these wings hanging down, and this thing was lifting right up. And then over here, again, is from my footage. And we've got something is definitely twirling or twisting around this either pole or another piece of octopus or squid tentacles. Something's going on in there. And, I'm wondering too, if maybe tentacles are grasping around a center pole that's going up or something off of this craft. Whatever the case, it's dodgy. There's something going on there. And this you can start to tell our craft because there's a, straight line. There's like a point to it. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the scene, but that's a whole nother side note. I want to say up here too, this almost looks suction cup like up here. And I do note in another show where on the cover, there's instead of like a squid like thing, there is an octopus like head with an eye. And it's on one of the covers called, now I can't remember what it's called. I'll put it in the description box below. Seek and Find or something like that. But anyway, there's this thing hiding, like nestled in the cloud, and it has a tentacle up, and you can see definitely suction cups on that thing. So that's also how I started to put together, but that was in a daytime setting. That's how I also started to put together, my gosh, there really are these things up in the sky. I saw this thing from California, the thing I was already noticing, plus this other octopus thing in the clouds. So I know it sounds wild, but yeah, it is. So the question becomes, a lot of these scenes when it was nighttime backlighting, with these flashes, the flickering and the lightning looks artificial, but also the sky was starting to look, remember, this is 2021 when a lot of people were self-imposing, staying at home. I wasn't. I was out on the street. I was everywhere taking pictures. It was a great time. Not much traffic on the road for me to do sky watching, but otherwise it was a hideous time, social engineering wise. But anyhow, I was noticing the quality of the sky too. And this is a sky that I've known for over 50 years and, grew up playing outside more hours than I was inside and always observing the sky and everything. But the sky at night, when the lightning would flash, so-called lightning, the whole quality of the sky looked like a silver screen, like a movie screen. So the only way I can put it, it just felt weird and different. And so that's something that's kind of been happening too. I don't know if any of you have been noticing that. You really only notice it though when there's this weird quote unquote lightning flickering. It also makes the camera go really buggy. It, split screens the camera in weird ways. And people could say, oh, well, that's just digital effect of, the camera interfacing with the electricity or whatever. But I say, no, there's something more at play with all of this, because I remember being able to take pictures before, say, I don't know how many years ago with a digital camera, and it didn't do that. Is there more sensitive equipment in there that's kind of interacting that way? Maybe. But I'll tell you, just from eyeballing, forget and ditch the digital cameras, ditch cameras just with the naked eye. That's what really counts. You can just tell something is off. and it really does look like a screen. So that brings up another point or question, which I never really would have thought before. Definitely not pre 2010, and more increasingly, I think a lot of us are having some questions ramping up since 2019, 2020 for obvious reasons. Questioning, is what part of our history is really authentic? How much have we been deceived with that? What's going on truly in the world around us? And especially as we're in this kind of great shift or great awakening, where something definitely is changing on this planet. And there are going to be two camps. I made a big deal out of how I can't stand the A or B, choosing A or B only with my last show about paper plastic. But it kind of almost is, though. Now we do have one of those A or B choices. I mean, sure, there's always C or off-roading it or more. But it's the bigger questions are, do you want to live in this world in a more loving way forward that's very freedom-based? Or do we want to move along forward into a world that's very, speaking of this title, Krakens and the Dragons, do we want something that's very oppressive and draconian going forward, much more punishing, less restrictive, right? And so I know what answer I'm going to say, more loving world, please, right? So anyway, as we move there, our vision is going to start to change, our actually physical vision. We're going to start to see deeper into different dimensions if we want to choose that loving and quote unquote higher dimensional way forward or upward or spiraling upward. And so we're going to start to see the world kind of starting to change a bit. And also as we change and as we move and grow together, right? And like much like this image, when you look at the video, much like this image of this thing just kind of ascending in an updraft, that's us too, if we choose to get lighter and move to a more beautiful, harmonious way. So I'm making a big deal out of that because I'm just saying, ditch the cameras. Now with our own physical eyes, we're going to start to see deeper. We're going to start to be able to kind of distinguish and pull things apart a little bit about our reality. So for this instance where I'm saying that the background looks more like a movie screen, it really does, and it feels like it. And I was shocked the first time this whole concept or this sight dawned on me. I'm like, it just feels weird. And so what are we in is the next question. So that leads me to, I never would have thought about, are we under a dome? Some say we absolutely are. Like this section of Earth that we're in is under some kind of dome-like thing. We're an experiment. We're not allowed to play with the others, so to speak, on the rest of the Earth. I talk about what I think the shape of the Earth is in Live 10. We're at 45, so if you go back to Live 10, I talk about it where there are versions of the Earth that, if it's a toroid, it's a little bit like flattened on the top. It's still somewhat spherical or like a globe, kind of like those maps. I don't have it behind me. But just those wall maps, they show a flattened top, a flattened bottom, and it's kind of like elongated. It's like an elongated toroid. Some say a donut. It's not, to me, quite a donut. It's a weird little shape. But anyway, within that shape, you've got a flattened top, flattened bottom. So flattened top, you can have a section that's flat. So that will, ding, 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 ring bells for anybody who's into flat Earth. For anybody who's into a sphere, you've got more of the toroid shape. And this is also, corresponds to everybody, jives with everybody who knows that there's an inner Earth or a hollow Earth. Hollow Earth is a little bit of a misnomer. There's many layers and parts to the inner Earth, but I was definitely not even guided. I was like neon lighted. Like I was given a clear vision that yes, there is inner Earth. And I was validated many, many different crazy ways. And so for me, that model serves it's not just like a neat catch-all for everyone's point of view. I really do feel that's what it is. So with a toroid, you've got also energetic fields. It's kind of like slicing an apple. So why do you think the apple is everywhere? Even on the computer lids, they make a big deal about Newton. There's something tied into that apple, which is the core of the Earth, is inner Earth. It's a huge ass clue on the esoteric circles. And so if you've got the cross section of an apple, which is kind of like a toroid too, a weird shaped one, you've got the indentations at the top of the apple, and then you come around, you got them in the bottom, and that's the way that the electromagnetic fields flow. And then you take a person, and there's some great diagrams. I didn't bring it for this, but it's in one of my shows way back too, that if you have a person standing here and they show the energetic flow coming out of us and our aura, it kind of moves around the same way as well. And it would make sense that, we are one with how the mechanics or the physics of the actual earth work, because we're just like a mini microcosm of that. We're a cell of that bigger, cell, which is which is a cell of another bigger cell type of thing, right? All right, so I just journeyed off on that, but I felt I was supposed to. But anyway, back to the sky. So when looking at the sky, we got a question, okay, then what's the shape of the earth? And then we get into, okay, what's going on in the sky? I never believed in a dome, like, we're like in this quarantined area, under this kind of dome. But more and more, I'm thinking, hey, maybe there is something to it. A lot of people say that if you can get your hands on a Bible, again, love it or not, I'm not a fan, because I know it's been written, rewritten, edited to serve the agendas of certain people. And I say that too because there's not enough loving content in there for me. And any woman is like depicted as a prostitute or harlot or something terrible. Like, there are very few examples of revered women other than Mary, and that's it. So something's a little bit off there. Now, some people say, oh no, there are plenty of women. Well, really, really look at the roles. But again, I digress yet again. But just what I know with languages, things are edited, misinterpreted, written. What do we know about our history books? Written to serve whoever wants to oppress the peoples. And not that all of it's bad. I don't want to say that, because there are a lot of people who take a lot of good faith and source and comfort out of the Bible. But just, really read between the lines and make sure that, it's whatever part that you are looking into is loving. Anyhow, but all that to say, so some people say, though, if you can get your hands on a Bible, from like a antiquarian or whatever, what am I trying to think, like flea market, anywhere you can find one, from like if you can get one from like 1800s or 1700s, or even like just before 1900s. A lot of people say that in their family histories, they used to record birth dates and death dates of family before there was any officialdom, with the government doing any kind of social security or census stuff, so you would just keep track of the people in your family, like in the Bible, in the front. So that's it would be an interesting way to track, some people's lineage and genealogy. But also, the reason why I'm bringing that up is supposedly, like in the very first sheets, it talks about the Bible, old versions before they've been, edited apart even more, talk about there being a firmament. Now, again, I was kind of like, I don't know if I believe in that, but now I'm at a point where I have my mind is wide open. I'll look at something, let's talk about it, let's entertain it. Let's look at it all different angles. Is there any, truth to it? It's kind of like a time to go clean slate, and let's look at everything fresh. And then if we still get down to the same deduction of, okay, this is how it works in our world, then okay. But we might find a lot of other interesting aha moments in some of these things that we look at fresh. And so with this whole kind of dome concept, it's also in some Norse depictions of like the earth under the dome. And then you've got that great tree Yggdrasil, and you've got, the Jorgmundur, I always forget his name, that big serpent that goes around, it's going around the earth, but in that model of like a dome on a plate, the snake is like forming the boundary, of that, half dome. And then that boundary, you could also interpret loosely that if it's a big, great white snake going around the perimeter, that could also be interpreted as an ice wall. A lot of people are talking about that we're kind of enclosed with an ice wall, maybe an ice dome. I mean, there's a lot to this. So that's jumping off, into other directions. But as you know, whenever I bring up these topics, we're just going to go with the flow with the go, and see where we end up. But that's just wanting to come through, because I think it's hard to talk about, we have these swashbuckling adventures. We'll get to looking at some movies in a minute of pirates and talking about, these like sea monsters. We go back to the really old ancient cartographs, these ancient maps that show sea monsters swimming, like all sporadically in the ocean. And some are taking down ships, some are just watching things go by. And I covered that on the earlier show. I think it was my sea serpents one, where you see the serpent on the cover. I think that's number 11 or something. Have a look there. It's a fun discussion looking at old maps and where these sea monsters are. But anyway, it's just good to question all of this now again of what is going on in our world. So coming back to the skies, though, we know we have like recorded things about krakens being in the sea, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit. But what could be going on in the sky? Well, let's just say for a minute, let's just forget everything we might know or think we know, and open it up for discussion. So what if we do have some kind of dome? Well, that would mean that as we're standing on surface Earth as we know it, as human beings, when we look up through the dome, we're going to see what's beyond the dome. and actually, the other morning, I was going to look up the lyrics, but then I forgot what the song was. The other morning, I got this topic really, really late in the game, and I was thinking, oh, I guess I might not even be doing a show today. But then slowly it came in about doing this topic with the krakens, the nighttime krakens, and stormy night. What did I say? Stormy night skies, kraken and dragons. But the song by Tina Turner, Thunderdome, came in my head. So it's just beyond the Thunderdome is one of the lines. And so, all right. So if we're in this dome and we look up, what might be there? So I do believe that everything we've been told about quote unquote outer space is not correct. And some people are gonna be like, what? Of course it is. Well, I don't. And I think, again, when we start getting this vision, as we start ascending, collective consciousness is saying, hey, we vote for a loving way forward. We're going to have gifts that are activated, that will be activating more and more, gifts that are dormant within us that just need a little divine activation. And we'll be able to see deeper. We'll be able to know more stuff. And I think this is another one of all of these realms that's going to be a really fun surprise for us. So anyway, let's just imagine there's a dome and we can kind of see through it. It's somewhat see-through. Well, what might we see? So that does challenge what your belief about space is. Is it just like dead, vacant air, a void? Or is it like a plasma medium that stuff moves through? I would in the past just say, of course, it's as we're taught. It's just like dead space, quote unquote. It's like a vacuum. But then the more I've looked at some of this stuff in the sky, my sky observations, I've seen some aquatic-like things I've captured on, the digital camera, which can see a little bit deeper right now until we can. I've seen weird little stuff, fish-like things even, and towards sunset. And you need the right lighting, you need all the right conditions. And, when the camera picks it up, and I'm like, what is going on in our world? So now I'm more open-minded. Maybe there is some kind of dome. And beyond it is, even within it, there's probably different layers we don't quite get of what's really happening in the atmosphere. But also past the dome, I'm more open-minded now. Maybe there are, if not the whole thing being like a plasma medium, maybe just there's pockets of it. I don't know. I'm open to look at it. But I will say that when I first started skywatching and I was divinely directed, look up, those were the words I was given. I saw a lot of rippling, and a lot of people will say, oh, that's HARP technology creating ripple waves. Well, possibly that's one. Another one, a craft sitting there locally can generate these waves, in the cloud pattern to make it look like ripples. But then I was also seeing something totally different that looked more like actual rippled water. And that kind of got me thinking, well, geez, maybe there is something to this dome stuff, because it kind of just looked like something rippling along the surface of what could be a dome. I'm just saying I'm open to it. Okay. And my computer kind of changed color. So it's a little affirmation for me that it is important just to stay open. If we hold on to all of our beliefs like iron grip tight, we never grow spiritually. So it's good to not just not have any beliefs, but whatever beliefs we do have, it's not good, bad, indifferent. It's just a nice way forward to kind of hold those beliefs loosely, hold them though, until we come up to the next thing to look at, like I'm doing now. Okay, and then let's just back up and look at it with an open mind, and then re-examine against our beliefs. Does it still, I'm going to say really awful cringy pun now, hold water, or does it not anymore? And, and keep kind of moving along with it all. So anyway, I'm just saying, before this year, I never would have even entertained an ice wall around Earth, a dome, flat Earth, definitely not. Toroid, I never really thought about it. I just thought, hey, it's this, this globe we're all told about, right? And what are we told at Earth? It's a ball. Well, what is the name ball? It's like the devil, right? Like Balka, ball, kind of thing. Anyway, so I have an issue also with that word. But anyway, point is, it's time to have the open mind. So keeping that in mind, do look in the post section at the videos I'm referring to. The original footage of my Nightcraft Sky Battle, I think it's show 92 or something, where you can see this, and I give detailed narration on it. And then look at the other one. I just put the shorts for now on this example in California. But in the description area below after the show, I'll put the shorts version of that other person's footage, and they have like a longer version. But see what you think about sky krakens. And again, I invite you to, on a rainy or stormy, let's just say, because sometimes there's storm, lightning flickers and flashes without rain, just do like I mentioned, even just for like 5 minutes, whatever you can do, have that, your camera phone up, and it can be pitch black, have the record mode going on video. When it flashes, make sure you got, footage of stuff flashing, and then go frame by frame, and you're going to see really wild stuff backlit, right? All right, so that's kind of closes out just my initial like intro chapter and all of this, and now we'll get into some specifics. And I want to say also, so I don't know if I said it before, forgive me if I didn't, but welcome Rita Pita. She says, hi, Varleigh, happy weekend to you as well, and hi to everyone. And Sarah's joined in. Thanks, Sarah, for hopping in. Says, hey, everyone. Hey, Varleigh. So, hey, back. And I'm so happy you're here. And I'm wishing all of you guys and Chad and everybody well this weekend and moving forward. So now let me step back a second about dragons and krakens, because I got to remind myself it's a weird little title, but Stormy Night Skies, Kraken Dragons. So it's a little pun on, kraken lightning. We're going to crack dragons. So the question too is, and some of my examples are these, are they krakens, or could this be each example here dragons? So that's going to be kind of hard to say. So I did cover a lot more about dragons early in my other lives, but I'll just give a really brief description about dragons. Obviously, aside from the physical characteristics, I think we all know the basics, right? There's probably scales and claws and talons involved, the tail, wings, maybe horns. Some respond to like different elementals, like if you have a fire-breathing dragon or an ice-breathing dragon or whatever. But also there are different dragon types based on legs, no legs, wings, So a dragon is typically something with 4 legs and it has wings. A wyvern is something with 2 legs and kind of like hind legs, a tail, and wings. And a worm, I just found this out. Again, any of my searches are going to just be basic internet searches, so feel free to question or dig deeper into anything that I present today. But the worm, supposedly in Old Norse and in modern Scandinavian, I think it was, that a worm just kind of applied to any dragon. It wasn't, like modern day says it's a legless, wingless serpent. So, or something like a sea dragon. So really, if it's legless and wingless, it kind of looks like a snake or an earthworm. And that's what Old Norse called a worm, is just referring to a snake or a serpent and any dragon. Okay. So that was kind of interesting. And the Old Norse word it comes from is like dreki or ormer, something like that. Okay. Now, when we get to kraken, I don't know much about krakens, except what I found out was a total misleading thing. If you grew up watching or were around anywhere near the 80s to see the movie The Clash of the Titans, like the original really cheesy one when it came out, I think it was 1980, 1981. They show what in there? And anything I talk about movies, spoiler alert, so do earmuffs or hit mute. I'm going to talk about it. But in that movie, Clash of the Titans, the original one, they show Poseidon bringing out the Kraken to destroy Argos, I think it is. So the city, this water, seaside city. So anyway, they use this huge monster, they call it the Kraken, to do that. Now, they never really show you, they just show you kind of like a tail or a tentacle going in during most of the movie until he makes his debut at the end. You see what he's like. But anyway, they use the Kraken, and it's a joke. Like people go, release the Kraken, kind of comes from that movie. That's like the pop culture reference, right? So now it just means like a lot of different stuff. But anyway, with that Kraken, I was looking it up, and just from what I could see, there is no connection of a Kraken per se to Greek mythology. So that was just that through anybody growing up with that movie is probably thinking, oh, that's like an ancient Greek mythological beast. No, or creature. Okay. So really, supposedly the Kraken comes from Scandinavian lore and also Norwegian folklore. And also because why? They were very seafaring people. And I talked about them in the previous live I did talking about the Varangians or Varangians. But anyway, Kraken is referring to an enormous or colossal island-sized squid or octopus-like creature, and it supposedly lived off the coasts of Norway and Greenland. So the etymology, and I'll come back to a little more history on that, of Kraken is supposedly Old Norse and modern Scandinavian kraka, if I'm saying it right, or kraka, and it means crooked tree, twisted or curled thing, or a wooden anchor drag. And all of that makes sense. So if you look at our modern movies, we'll look at a little bit of Pirates of the Caribbean. Actually, I'll hold it up right now. Pirates of the Caribbean 2, again, spoiler alert, they've got the Kraken in there. And so if you look at the lower page here with me, we've got, here comes the Kraken on both sides. Tentacles are ready to come up and grab that ship and pull it down. And this is what it reminds me of, that sky reference I was telling you about, my sky observation with the back flash of lightning. It looked like, a huge chunky tentacle was wrapping around and intertwining something. That's exactly what it reminds me of. But anyway, we've got the typical, quintessential, here comes a Kraken and it's pulling a ship down, right? And I put this in the post section. I put a little shorts. I have the movie, so I just made a shorts out of it for ahead of the show. But for anyone who doesn't know, that scene comes from, yes, it's a Disney movie, but it's Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and Dead Man's Chest. Okay. So anyway, what do we have? And I'll off-road it a little bit and come back around full circle. We have a lot of movies referring to Kraken-like things. Even in Aquaman from 2019, this version, I think it was 2019 or 2018. I always mix it up. I think it's 2018. But anyway, this one, there's a huge Kraken-like monster involved at the end as well. And this, of course, centers around Atlantis. Then we're going to get into stuff that I did put in the post section. We're going to get into the, it's kind of like pick your movies. Do you want a space theme, Space Sagas, or do you want the Sea Sagas? So you got the Pirates of the Caribbean, or we get into the Star Wars universe, as they say. So over here, this is from Star Wars Rebels, an animation series, and this is called a Purgle. And I put a clip of this also in the shorts in my post section, so you can see them in action. And they drift across space in the hyperspace lanes, so they can do hyperspace travel. And they're like a whale, but also have these huge tentacles. So that's yet another kind of life form, which makes me think maybe something like this does exist out there somewhere. There's got to be, as much as your imagination can go, I'm sure there are life forms to match somewhere, between here and the undefined right now, right? And the infinite. So anyway, that's this one. And when they get ready to travel in hyperspace, they kind of hang out in pods. They show you in the shorts that I posted on the underside. These tentacles start to light up and go all crazy, and then they, take off. All right, then we have Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and this is the Millennium Falcon, if you know that, arc, spaceship. And here it's hard to tell, but there's a huge thing with tentacles. And it's like a big spherical head, and it's grabbing on for dear life onto the ship, trying to tear it apart. And that thing is called a Rathtar. So it's typically not like out in space, but it's like this thing, this all terrible thing. But again, it's the idea of the tentacles. And there's a whole sequence in that movie where, people are trying to dodge the tentacles, are trying to grab them and whatever. So from a kind of a theatrical, protagonist, antagonist saga kind of thing, you got to have this creature. And what's more unpredictable than like a movement of a snake or like this tentacle, right? So it's very unnerving and it's very effective if you want to kind of creep people out. So anyway, that's used in not only that movie, but you have something tentacled kind of, again, happening actually throughout the whole kind of Star Wars universe, quote unquote. There's several different creatures. One is called the Sarlacc, I think. it's a pit in the sand, and it has tentacles that can come out. And so it's this idea of tentacles, something, grabbing and suctioning on, destroying stuff. That's kind of the lore. So, but let's look at what the, and here, I'll just hold these up real quick. So the movies I just referenced were Star Wars Rebels. If you get it on a, kind of a disc type situation and not online, that's, it's from season 2, the Purgles. That I was showing you comes from season 2, I think episode 15, and the name of the episode is called The Call, C-A-L-L. Then we have, here's from The Force Awakens, just a little cover view there. So that's the Rathtars attacking the ship with their long squid-like tentacles. And then we'll get into one more movie reference later, a few more actually. Okay, so back to our Norse friends of old Norway and Scandinavia. Supposedly, back to what is the Kraken and what did it mean to them? Well, in the 800s and so, we have kind of like the quote-unquote Viking invasion. Again, I talked that in my, talked about that in my previous live about the Varangians. So one group went eastward and southward from Scandinavia, from Sweden area, and another kind of went westward over toward, UK area. But no matter what, my theory is that they came from the north and that they even came from inner earth, that they were more giant seafaring people. And they would have encountered, a lot of these deep sea type of monsters, so to speak, quote unquote creatures. But anyway, in the Scandinavian folklore, the Krakens were these enormous, I told you, yeah, already said that, the island-sized, colossal, creature. That's big. Now, we could argue like how big's an island, but I think even the smallest island is still pretty big. So back in those times, say around the 800s, there was lore already developing. In the 1200 maps and things, we saw the sea monsters, sprinkled in there, through the oceans. And then in the 1100s, supposedly there was Norwegian manuscripts. One was by, I don't know how to say his name, a king, I think Sverre's writings, and it was called The King's Mirror. And in there, he wrote about there being monsters and sea creatures. And then reportedly, I did mention, in real life, supposedly there are things that do wash to shore that are colossal. So, we know these things kind of exist. Now, also, there's other detailed texts in the 1700s where it became popular to talk about this colossal thing too. So anyway, and then there's plenty of other examples of stories and lore, modern lore and pop culture, talking about these things. One movie I haven't heard of, and I just found it right before I came on here. Maybe some of you have seen it. I have no idea. It's kind of like this will be a crossover between brand new modern movies talking about Krakens and also like video games. I'm sure there's a ton of video games that feature Krakens, either in the sea or also in the sky or in space. One that I just tripped over was called, and I don't know if this is a family-friendly movie or what kind of movie it is. Check on your own. But 2023, I never even heard of this. A film came out called Sky Monster, and supposedly a Kraken dwells in the heart of a supernatural storm over Bermuda Triangle. Now, that may sound so outlandish and like total fantasy, but I gotta say, when I read that little plot summary, well, it's not really a summary, but little, premise of this movie, something hit me like, there might be there. Because also in 2019, the movie Godzilla, King of the Monsters, there's this huge multi-headed, well, it's called Ghidorah, but it's coming from, sorry about this. It's coming from the Ghidorah character in the King of the Monsters. They're kind of taking it from ancient Greek, from Typhon. So this it's the idea of Typhon, who was fighting the Olympian gods for power. And it was a multi-headed kind of Hydra type thing. It had wings. I'll explain it a little bit more later. But anyway, they took the idea of this Typhon or this sky kraken dragon thing, and it's kind of like a mix. And that was in the sky in this movie, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. And they called it Storm Zero because it traveled around as like a seeming hurricane in the movie. So now we've got two movies, from 2023, 2019, that are kind of echoing to each other this idea of a sky kraken, a sky dragon. that travels around in a storm or a hurricane, and that you may just see flashes of the eyes or the wings. And again, it's just bringing me back to this stuff of, again, whether this person's video was legit or not, I'm still not sure. But then mine, I just see these massive tentacle things. So I think there's a possibility there. Now, do I think that's, if it does exist as an organic being like that, that it's going to come down and like destroy us all? No, absolutely not. And even in this case, this gets back to my, is it a dome or movie screen? Like, what are we looking out of when we look into the sky these days? Because see how massive this is? I mean, I said, this is a neighborhood. This is just like the top of a house and some, tops of some trees. I mean, this is really low in the sky, and this is epic. It's massive. So are we seeing this just like interdimensionally? Is it something we can see, but we're looking through a little bit more to a different dimension? Or is this somehow working in compartmentalized screens or dimensions, or like window interstitial worlds where this stuff's happening, but it can't really affect us on the surface? Or is it in another way, like an optical mind game where this is happening on the outside of a dome, where all quote unquote hell can break loose? Typhon was symbolic of chaos a bit, I think. And so is this just like we're looking through a projection, not a blue beam projection, not that this is projected here, I don't believe that, but are we looking through some kind of screen where this is happening, like on the other side, is the question. And that's kind of what I'm leaning toward, because some of this is so massive, I just don't feel like it's happening within our dimension, yet we can totally see it. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, just some thoughts there. Okay, now more movies. So let's see. So yeah, I thought that was strange how sky monsters, the sky kraken, living in the heart of a storm at Bermuda Triangle, and then Ghidorah from Godzilla King of the Monsters is moving around in its own hurricane-type cloud. And actually in the movie, I think they showed it going up to Washington, D.C., so it was going up the Atlantic coast. There might be something to that it hangs out over the Atlantic, but I think it can go anywhere in the movie. Then we get into, okay, the concept of the ancient Greeks, Typhon, speaking of that Godzilla movie. So in the real ancient Greek mythology, Typhon wasn't a squid. Hold on. Yeah, not a squid, but has kind of like the long necks or serpentine necks. So kind of evokes a little bit of the tentacle idea. But anyway, Typhon was a giant storm and fire monster in Greek mythology. So I'm just going to do a quick little rundown of what that is, since it came up in the movies as a little bit analogous. I know we're kind of drifting a little bit, but I feel it's important to talk about it. So Typhon, again, was son of Gaia, or Earth. Okay, one of her sons that she had with Tartarus, and Tartarus was the primordial force or god of the underground pit. Okay, so she got together, Gaia gets together with Tartarus to make these fearsome children to overthrow the Olympian gods who were trying to overthrow their parents, basically. Okay, so Typhon, according to the Greek version, is a human upper body, but snake coils for legs, 100 dragon heads. He fought Zeus for rulership of the world, and again, it was because they were being overthrown. But supposedly Zeus, now get this, trapped him under Mount Etna. Mount Etna, we'll get to, is a volcano in eastern Sicily, which is erupting right now. It had huge wings that could fly, eyes that flashed with fire, could breathe hot flames, and hurl burning rocks. It created destructive storms and the wind. So here we go again, that storm idea, that it's kind of like in the storm, creating the storm. And then, so Zeus supposedly won with his thunderbolts and put him under a volcano at Mount Etna. And Mount Etna is in the side, is the tallest active volcano in Europe. And it is, like I said, at the eastern coast of Sicily, Italy. And for people who know meters, it's 3,324 meters high, or 10,900 feet, high. Now, oddly enough, I didn't go down this rabbit hole, or I said I was not going to say it anymore. I call them badger holes. I didn't go down the badger hole to look this up further, but it's a UNESCO, Mount Etna, the volcano, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So I want to look into that further, because as you know, if you've heard some of my other shows, for me, that's kind of like a ding, 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 a bell to look into. Anytime UNESCO puts their stamp on an area, there's something important going on there. Let's see. Okay, so the current status of the active volcano is just continually active, and it has regular ash events and the lava fountaining. So we've got an active volcano. Now, as an aside on that, and this is not, any of these like doomsday prophecies. I don't believe in anything doomsday, first of all. And any of these prophecies, I find them fun just to look at and see if any parts of them do come true. But supposedly Nostradamus talked about something significant happening and shifting on this earth when Mount Etna erupt again. And so it is. So it's just something to look out for. Timing is about there, that something's about to change. And remember, in this case, change is going to be for us, not against us. Change is going to be a good thing. Now, sure, it doesn't look like it when we see all of these off the hook amount of earthquakes happening right now. And I'm not convinced that all of them are natural, that they're not just natural plate shiftings. I'm pretty sure a lot of them are also being detonated or otherwise triggered in certain cases. But whatever the case, this is the time where there is noticeable stuff happening all over the place. And again, I think I have a very firm belief that if you believe in the good of all of human life, and that we are here to definitely bring in a new and more beautiful way forward for all of us, that wherever you yourself are going to be okay through any of this. And so, it's not a time to give into doom or fear or anything whatsoever. And if you know my channel, this is a no fear here zone, no fear here channel. And I firmly believe too that, okay, say anything did happen. I was in a place a few months ago where I had, relocated, and then all of a sudden there was a fire notice like a mile or two away, and the smoke was billowing down the street, and I'm like, oh my God, you must be kidding, like I just got here kind of thing. And hey God, you can't just like burn everything to a crisp, like what the heck. But then I thought, well, don't be stupid. I see the smoke coming down. They had put an alert like they were going to be knocking on doors. They didn't come as far as where I lived. But I thought, well, I can just sit here and look at it and say, oh yeah, I'm totally protected. Or I could go, okay, yeah, I know I'm protected, but I also was given a brain and wherewithal to do something with what I've got, with what I came equipped with. So I did just grab a bunch of stuff, throw it in a backpack, whatever was needed, essentials, and then threw it over, toward the door to be ready to go at a moment's notice. Now, deep in my heart, I didn't believe we were going to be affected. But I did, with my physical eyes, see a hell of a lot of smoke coming down the street. So I thought, well, you know what? Why not be covered both ways? Did I need to have prepped, months at a time for this moment? No. In the moment, I was clearly, had clear guidance, grab this, grab that, you're going to be fine. And even if I went out the door with just that and came back to nothing, I knew that wherever we are, God is, love is, and we come equipped. We have everything we need. And so we've just been so conditioned in this planet to make sure you have a backup of this. And hey, I'm in that same boat. I've been like, hey, if I go on a longer car trip, I want some backup snacks. I want to have stuff with me. It's just this mindset. But in reality, if we truly trust we're okay, and that we have a divinity within us that will always make sure we're okay, we have resourcefulness, we have creativity. We also have the angels on our pathway. We have these inexplicable guardian angels that drop in. How many stories are there of these people where I turned around, I really needed something, somebody handed me a sandwich, I turned around, the person was gone. It was like they were a phantom. That's your guardian angel. It's just a minor example. Much, much more severe ones happen with accidents. People say, oh, there was a man, he helped me, or a woman, she helped me. And they're like, where is this man? Where's this person? And then it was a guardian angel if no one else was there, right? Let me just see what Rita Peta says. A thought. The Matrix movies also have squid kraken like sentinel machines. You have to enjoy the sci-fi genre, LOL. Oh, are you talking about the first Matrix movie? Because I only saw the first one. And I just remember, was that the one that was like incubating the babies or something? I did see that movie when it first came out, and it just tripped the hell out of me. I was in my 20s, I guess. Late 20s or something. And I remember, oh, excuse me, I need some water. Speaking of krakens and water. Pardon, I don't like to drink on camera, but I had to. But anyway, that was that scene. Yeah, anything like with these tendrils and tentacles, right? We're made to be like creeped out. But they can be very helpful if they're good. Oh, I know what you're talking about now. You know what? I just saw you said Kraken like Sentinel machines. No, I know what you're talking about. You're not talking about that like baby holding scene with the like tubes. You're talking about, yeah, like that metal thing that was floating through the tunnel. Yeah, I think I remember that too. Yeah, so look at, they give us that creep factor by making it Kraken like with tentacles. And there must be something deep seated in our collective memory where we had an experience that wasn't so happy with that. And not that it should be, but something, or we were given memories that it wasn't so happy, and maybe it's not a big deal. Much like the whole phenomenon with spiders, arachnophobia, right? There's a lot of people that you just see when it can be like a speck and people freak out and jump out, but it's very real terror for them. And I think, there's something in our collective memory. And again, I don't know if somebody messed with our collective memories to make us like jump back and freak out. Really, there's no need to. I had a bit of a fear of them when I was little, but I've overcome it a long time ago. Actually, I think I even got bitten by something pretty venomous, and I just like left it. I monitored it, and then I just did mind over matter healing. I'm like, nope, you're going to heal. You're going to heal. It really did kind of mess up my skin for about 6 months, but then eventually it did heal. So, but even going through that, I think since I had that bite, I'm like, whatever. I think that was probably one of the worst ones I could have been bitten by. More so, you got to watch for little children with the venom content of the spiders. But again, I think there's something about it, like tentacles, grabby arms. Like we've got this deep memory, but where does that come from? Is it because we have different cosmic origins, and on whatever planet there was this sinister spider, and on other planets they're just fine, they're lovely? When you look at spiders as an example, and it's interesting, I'm going there because what do we have? Octopus, 8 legs, spider, arachne, 8 legs. I guess it kind of relates. I didn't expect to go here. But, when we think about the spiders, some of the indigenous stories are about the spider is the master weaver of all of creation. So it's actually something very beautiful. And if you look at some of the webs created, you just have to admire their handiwork, their footwork here. It's something, pretty ingenious too for engineering, not only to catch their prey in a passive way to get your food, but also just everything involved, the tensile structure of it, the moment something hits it, the signal, how that is received. Just pretty fascinating if you really, look deeper into it all. And then they can be very helpful, as long as they're not going to hurt you. If you have some around, they take care of other unwanted bugs, pests. Pests, we would say pests. My rule is, okay, I love nature, and where I can catch and release, I will, if it's in the house. However, if there are times that I can't, it kills me. But ironically, if I have to kill it, but I just bless it, the whole situation. And I just say, hey, God, I don't want to kill anything, but there are kind of boundaries. And so if I can't catch it and release it, or it creeps me out too much, it's kind of one of those, sorry, forgive me. But I tried to do that less and less and less. In fact, there was a wasp's nest that was forming in a corner, excuse me, just outside of a door that we were coming and going. And I saw it building, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to have to kill that too, or brush it away and get attacked or whatever. And I don't want to use poison on it, and I don't want the colony to get, really developed, so that instead of like one being you got to get rid of, now you've got a whole bunch of them. And so I put it out there actually right before I went to bed. I'm like, hey, God. And when I say God, I mean my whole team, whoever that is. That can be a whole bunch of divine beings, as I've said before, guardian angelics, ancestors, ET galactic family, the usuals, God, Jesus, Mary, whoever. Everybody's there, ancestors. So when I say that, I'm like, okay, hey, God, you know my heart. I don't want to have to kill these, even if they're hornets, wasps, whatever. They're beings, and I really don't want to do that. And I say, can you please take care of that for me? Because, I don't want to have to do it, but they can't stay there. And so what happened one morning was I went out, and it was like at my limit. I kept waiting. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm going to have to take care of it. So I did that the night before. I'm like, please, God, handle this for me. And sure enough, I walked out the door. They were gone. The whole nest was gone, and I didn't do anything. And no one in my house did anything. And so what I think happened is maybe a bird or something came through, but I was just like, you know what? Thank you. It wasn't windy either. So I think an animal took care of it. But I'm like, thank you. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Ask and you shall receive. I didn't want to harm it, right? Okay, so anyway, and Rita says, oh yeah, back to the Matrix, those squid kraken-like sentinel machines. She says they were the aquifer-like machines that hunted electronics. Yep, I know what you're talking about now. I haven't seen that movie in so long. I probably should watch it again, like on fast forward. And then, she said they were like squid-like kind of machines. And then she also says that orb weaver spiders make the most beautiful webs. They even have one that is the color of Darth Maul. LOL. I get the reference. That's really funny. From the prequels of Star Wars. And the orb spider resembles Darth Maul. LOL. Just to clarify. Oh, right. Gotcha. Yeah. So if you don't know Darth Maul, I don't have an example here, but look him up. From Star Wars. He has like red and black patterning, very interesting. Yeah, orb spiders. There's so many types of spiders. And, of course, some are really huge, but harmless and etc. So, that would be an interesting thing. I don't think I'm going to be doing it, but if anybody wants to take this as a topic and run with it, I bet that would be really cool. It's just to look up different spider web patterns based on species, and does it vary with just each individual? I have no idea. I'm just throwing that out because I haven't looked into it at all. All right, so now just to wrap out talking about though Zeus dispensing of Typhon under the volcano at Mount Etna in Italy. Again, it just reminds me, and I refer to it almost every time, because anytime we talk about these gods and monsters and battles, so to speak, I refer everyone to go look at that Pergamon Museum in Berlin. There's a virtual 360 tour. I'll put it in the link below. I'll put the link of it in the description area below again after this again. But it's a whole scene of frieze wrapped around what was called the altar of Zeus. And there's these more than bas-relief statues kind of coming out of the wall, depicting the scene of the battle of the giants. So Gaia's children, the giants, fighting the Olympian gods. And that's really interesting. And then that whole frieze, that whole setup was lifted, from Turkey, I think Bodrum, Turkey, and then resituated in this museum in Berlin. And it's really fascinating. So I'm going to put that back up again. Okay. Oh, one other dragon I did not mention on the dragon kraken part. This part too, not part two, but this part also reminded me when I was looking at the two, comparing the footage of this other person, again, oops, sorry, these two big droopy dragon wings or kraken wings draping down, and these tentacles or legs, and this thing was lifting up, and my intertwined tentacles here. It was all reminding me, because the flashes were turning like bluish and cyan, reminded me of Toothless. So here's another sky, not a kraken, but a sky dragon at night. He's a night fury. If you know this cartoon or animation, I should say. Here we go. So, here's Toothless, this black dragon. And what's his power? He shoots out plasma blasts, right? And so at night, he usually never misses his target. He's a strike class dragon, if you know the lore of How to Train Your Dragon. It's a fun, family-friendly kind of movie, if you don't know it. And anyway, where we have Vikings and dragons involved. So anyway, the very first movie, and I put the clip in my post section. I'm sorry, I put in my shorts section. If I say posts, I might have meant shorts on some of these things. If I did some shorts, obviously I put them in the shorts section. But anyway, I put a little clip of How to Train Your Dragon 1, where we first get to see the silhouette of the Night Fury, of this plasma blast shooting dragon in the night. So anyway, it's just another image from a movie reminding me of perhaps we have some hint drops and clues of there being, like the movie was called Sky Kraken, or night sky krakens or dragons up there. And for anyone who needs it, this is what the cover of the first movie, there are 3. And coincidentally, the third movie, again, major spoiler alert, the third movie is something called like this plus, How to Train Your Dragon in the Hidden World. And what do? They go trying to find the ancestral home of the Vikings, and they go to the north until they can't go anymore, and there's a big hole going down into inner earth, and they go into an inner earth cave. So to me, that was more than a hint drop. That's just saying what's going on and that the Vikings came from there. Anyway, and that relates back to one of my that Varangian show I did earlier, the live show. Okay, so let me see, and then oh no, is the video still over? Okay, I'm just seeing the video cut out. Oh, okay. Whew. Okay. Thank you. Rita Pita had written your video cut out, and she said, never mind. It was on my end. It's all good. Because you guys were so kind enough to let me know it did happen once. And I think, sorry, no problem. And then I was like talking for about 5 minutes with, nobody hearing me because it did cut out that time. So no, I'd rather us have like a never mind than a, I'm just going on and nobody's hearing me. So no, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Well, I think that's kind of all I had today to bring about the Krakens and the dragons. I'm sure there was much more I would have liked to, but I think this is all I have in me to talk about them. And because the topic came up so darn late, like it literally just came the other day. So I knew this wasn't one to like go really further in depth on. And I don't think anybody's going to be crying in their milk over this, if I don't go deeper on it. But yeah, maybe just ponder some things too. What do you guys, feel about Krakens and dragons in the sky? We know about Krakens in the water, but the sky, that's what I'm saying. It gets a little bendy, what's sky, what's water, maybe, and if it's flipped. But anyway, there's going to be more concepts about that maybe coming, because I already feel like that'll get too in depth if I go with that right now. So I think unless anyone else had anything else to talk about, it can be about Krakens, dragons, or something totally different. I think in the meantime, I did pre-draw a few cards. If anybody wants just some brief messages today from Oracle cards or Tarot cards. I'm going to do 3 groups and a bonus card. And so just so you see where we're headed, I don't know if any of you know this deck. It's kind of fun. It's can be dark, but also very interesting. There's something very alluring about it to me. Not the darkness part, but it's done in a very poetic way, I guess I want to say. But anyway, the runic tarot, just because we're bringing in some of those Viking, dragon, Scandinavian vibes. And then I will take one bonus card from this one that we had last week, the Dragon Oracle Cards Guidebook. This is a little more cartoon-like by comparison, a more happy factor, just as an example. I'm just going to randomly, oh, how funny. I just randomly took this. Just an example from this runic deck. I'm sorry about that, glare. But anyway, that's the back side of the runic deck. And here's another one, the star. I just grabbed that. So this is the extra bonus message, the star. And look we've got our mighty warrior. And what is he against? I don't know. Is that a dragon or is it just a huge serpent? Look in the background. In the background, you can even see, the tentacle, or that's just probably the serpent. So anyway, look at that. We definitely got these like serpent vibes, but that's very good news. The star and the sun are excellent cards in the deck. So anyway, we'll move on. Oh, but what I was going to do is compare that with our other like dragon deck, which is a little more G friendly. The other one's like a little more intense, and this, by comparison, is just showing us happy dragon, intense dragon, right? Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to just say the numbers 1, 2, and 3, and just go with a little pull of any of those numbers that felt right to you. And then also you can choose 2 or more of all of them. It can be all of them. It can be whatever. All right. So group 1 has a beautiful card, number 10 of horns. And this book, if you know the tarot deck, this one is a tarot deck. The other one's oracle cards. This one gives you, instead of saying like wands, well, it does have wands actually, but you know what I mean? Like wands, swords, etc. This one has wands, shields are pentacles, and horns. Let's see, horns are cups. So they just, give it a little Viking flair. Okay. All right. So group 1 has 10 of horns, which would be 10 of cups. And this, we can just sum up pretty much in one word: celebration. Time to celebrate. And you see how everything's golden in the hall and the cups are raised. And I think actually that's another fun thing. I'm going to diverge. Depending on what culture you're in. Have you ever thought about it? Like what it means to say cheers, in English, it's like cheers when you're toasting to somebody. In other cultures, I think it's Scandinavian. Somebody out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's skål. So skål is what you say when you raise your glass. And Italy, it's like chin chin. So there's like different ways to toast. I just find that interesting. But anyway, back to our hall. So it's a golden hall, and everybody's celebrating. So you just know it's like the end of probably a long siege or victory. Something great has happened, and the warmth and the ambiance. And what this reminds me of is, let us cherish and savor the golden moments. And why I'm saying that is that this is also just showing number 10 can be also number 1, and it's a 1 and a 0. So it can represent like the end of something, but also the beginning all at once. And it's celebrating the golden moments, because I've looked back in my own life. I'm at a certain vintage, let's just say, where I can look back a bit. And I remember what it was being in like my youth and heyday, and running around and doing stuff without worrying about maybe some joints cracking and stuff. But, running around in a different way than I do now. But every moment you were in can be a golden moment. Even some of the hardest stuff to go through. It's like when you get enough distance and time, behind your belt or behind you, you look back and you start to be able to appreciate certain things about it. Not that, I'm not saying if you were in a horrific situation that whole saga, is your golden moment. But there might have been a time before it or after it, as you get out of that. But any period along the way, and like every several years, like look back to 2019, 2020, I think a lot of us can say, wow, ooh, pre-2019, 20, that was like a different era and moment to now, especially with what happened in between to disrupt so much stuff. And when we were in it, we're just like, taking it for granted. It's just going to keep going like this and whatever, for better or for worse. But something radically shifted. And again, I think we're in another one of those now moments. Every now moment is a new opportunity to do something differently, if we choose to. And if we don't, we don't. But anyway, the point is, maybe stop for a moment, stop and smell the roses a minute, and maybe look back and really look back and think, okay, even if it was a seemingly adverse moment, what was maybe the golden moment in there? I'm being drawn back to like a Thanksgiving table. And at least in the Western part of the world, in the US, we all know the joke about how if you, don't talk about politics or religion, and just kind of, keep everything even keeled when you're at, a gathering like this, so that there aren't fights and breaking out and people, arguing with each other. And I've been at some tables where there have been some cold moments and arguments. And but then I look back and now I can kind of laugh at some of those, and be happy of what I said or didn't say, or, play back what somebody said and be like, well, I can't believe I even entertained that for 1 second, So anyway, there's always a way to find a golden moment, but just to remember that right now it might be it. And it doesn't have to be anything incredible and epic, like we're talking about these huge sky krakens or water krakens or dragons. It doesn't have to be this epic celebratory moment, although they're having a good one with a lot of people around. This may even just be celebrating you yourself. Sometimes we don't have, this is going to be another cringy pun coming in and coming. See the horn at the top? We don't always have someone else to toot our horn. Sometimes we have to be the one to toot our own horn. Toot, toot, do it. And that's okay too, because there's a different level and nuance of love reach when you do honor your own self. And I've said before too, who better to honor you, yourself, than you? You know exactly how you would love to be honored, right? So just a thought, because not all of us have this table. Now, if you do have a family like this gathered around, then yeah, and you can go out and celebrate, it's just a good reminder to do so, to take a moment to do so. Sometimes we get caught up in so much stuff and we forget to have fun. Others, it's like the opposite issue. All right, so that was group 1. Now, group 2 is called Page of Pentacles. And I'm going to go to the book on this one, I think. So if you have group 2, Page of Pentacles, she's out there with her shield, which in this case, the shield is the pentacles. We've got some like runic, runes on there and different, I forget the symbol. It's on the card too. It's like the sun, I think. But anyway, look at that beautiful picturesque thing. She's kind of out there. Let's see what it has to say, because I did kind of pre-look real quick to see where they were headed with this. And let's go. Oh, and while I get to the page, I'm just reminded of the horns of that last card, the horns being the cups. And it just reminds me of the horns of plenty that you have in that scene, like total abundance, everything's great, you're celebrating the victory. And then when I think of a horn of plenty, I have to think of that Mandela effect, because this is also reminding me of a mandala, which takes me to the word Mandela effect of the horn of plenty being the cornucopia. And if you know that whole thing about the Mandela effect with the fruit of the loom label, is there a cornucopia or is it just the fruit? I know for sure there was a cornucopia, because me, like others, that's the only way we learned the word cornucopia. I think I was like 4 running through the house asking my dad, what is this thing on the underwear? What's that thing? And he said, it's a cornucopia. I'm like, oh, okay. So anyway, that solves that Mandela effect for me anyway. All right, so we have the Page of Pentacles. Give me 1 second. Oh, yeah, which is, okay, Page of Shields. It just threw me. I'm going to have to read this with the flashlight, and we will get there. Okay, so let's just see. Okay, the Page of Shields, which is the Pentacles, describes someone who is in training. This is a person who is setting out to learn how to interact in their environment. Since shields represent wealth and protection, this Viking has a long way to learn how to care for and use their shield correctly. They have a keen sense of hearing, which helps them grow into their surroundings. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Which helps them grow into their surroundings and be more aware of what is going on around them. The senses are an input, and the Page of Shields takes it all into their mind before applying it into action. Okay, this is written, I think it's translated from a different country, so it sounds a little bit funny, but take from it what you will. When I heard that they have a keen sense of hearing, as she's, standing around the field and looking around the mountains, it's reminding me back of like group 1 at their horn, how you kind of like hold a horn up to your ear, to hear even better. Interesting. So aware of the surroundings. So if it says some keywords for this are observant, defend your ideals, stillness, pay attention to details, focus on staying alive. Now, elemental attributes for this are double earth. So they say natural power, roots, origin, and sense of identity. And I mean, I don't know why, but with this whole deck, that's bringing in, I'll just show you the card again. See all the mountains in the background? I don't know why, but I keep getting this Caucasus Mountains and the origins of the Vikings and everything keep floating around in my last few lives. And this, if you look in the background, does look like the background of like the Caucasus Mountains and origins. So what they're talking about, the identity and the double earth is, maybe just stand in the ground and, maybe strike a pose like this, Page of Pentacles or Shields, and just really feel into the earth, but in a firm way. And maybe put, your hand on a strong tree, as you do that too, just to really like triple earth it, and bring everything down, and just know your sense of place and being in the right here, right now. So whereas group 1 was more about the overall golden moments and celebrating with kind of almost reckless abandon, this one is very introspective and really kind of hear the song of the earth, hear the song of the land, and know thyself, like thy own self be true, know thyself, and you know yourself through connecting in with the earth, because it was talking about double earth being important with the elementals in that card. Okay. All right. Now let's get to, if you had number 3 is Knight of Pentacles or Knight of Shields. They have it written 2 different ways, so it's throwing me a bit, but here we go. And then that, there we've got the Knight also with the shield, also with the mountains in the background. But right away, we see that this Knight is elevated. So whereas the other girl in group 2 was firmly planted on the ground, we have kind of like seeing the world in a slightly different way. But let's see what the book says about this as well. And let's see. So the Knight of Shields or Pentacles moves through the world at a slow pace. They may not be the fastest warrior in the clans, but they're the most observant. This Viking takes their time. They move slowly through unknown territory, making sure every area is secure and free from danger. They have trained just like any other warrior in the clan. They know when to strike and when to stealth, and this gives them the ability to succeed and in the perfection of their quest. Wow, there are a lot of good messages in there. I'm just going to let whatever popped out for you pop out. For me, it's like, yes, know when to look and when to leap, when to hold back. It's also reminding me, for whatever reason, well, because of my namesake on my handle, but the panther. The panther, could just barge in there, run in, steal something, take it, and run off. But they're very stealthy. They observe the situation and they have more success because they've taken the time and haven't acted rashly. So that might be a message for somebody out there. It says keywords: take caution, pause, and enjoy the journey. Build security first. Have patience. Be present. And some elemental attributes are earth, natural power, roots, origin, sense of identity, and also fire, creative power, outer strength, passions, and desires. Okay. So I think that's enough for that one. Again, just maybe also taking stuff, looking at things. Maybe, it's the old thing, like they say, like wait 24 hours before you make an important decision. Some of us, you just may in that moment know intuitively, then just go with the flow. But if you're really on the fence or something's kind of like, and you're hesitating, it's a great time to maybe just hesitate longer than your comfort zone and really have time to observe. Because not only is there time for something for you to happen and be ready to align with, but it also might be giving that extra time for the whole situation to align right in your favor. Okay, just a little note there. All right, so now we'll have one more from the more happy toned. I mean, I like that deck. It's really cool, but the colors are really somber. And here we're going to go to the more like vibrant colors. So here's a little story on this one. So I went to go grab, a bonus card, just keeping in mind whatever's great for all of us, for right here, right now, and for our highest good. And 2 fell on the floor, and I thought, no, I just only want to, I'm just feeling strongly just to do one bonus card. And so the 2, I flipped them over, and I'm like, I had a choice. I'm like, I'm going to go with this one because it goes with the whole theme of the show, like a sky kraken, although this one, I guess, is in the water, but it could be in the sky as well. So look at this one. Okay. And then we'll look at Aquamarine Dragon from Neptune. Enables you to access your deepest soul wisdom. Spirituality and wisdom are available to you. Develop your psychic abilities and receive ineffable soul knowledge. So that's a happy little card. It's a sweet dragon, right? Holding a trident and a key. So this one's got like the key to the kingdom, but also accessing deepest soul wisdom. So let's just see if there's anything that the guidebook has to lend. Now, if you're interested in decks, this one is black and white on the inside. Some of them are nicely colored. And let me just see if anything jumps out as a little extra message here from this Aquamarine Dragon from Neptune. It says, let's see, Neptune is the watery planet of advanced spirituality and enlightenment. The aquamarine dragons from this illumined planet carry the light of the universe, which contains spiritual information and knowledge. They will approach us and ask us to tune into them so that they can download this light into our energy. So if that's something that clicks with you, some of these things, when they talk about these dragons and things, if you want to connect into, that doesn't resonate with me personally. So I like getting insights of like, okay, which dragon is which dimension might they be from? But then when it comes to doing further connection, that's just not me right now. So it might not be you right now. But if you are into this, trying to connect in with them, they have a little guidance thing, is to drink a glass of blessed water as you tune in with these dragons, and they will be able to touch you more profoundly. So that's just a nice little thing. Not a bad thing to bless water anyway, right? To connect in with some of these water dragons. And again, there's so many different kinds of dragons. I am no dragon expert, but what I do know is that, of course, with anything, we've got like the dark side and the light side. We've got like an evil, where we get draconian from, right? Some say there's this Draco ET race and they're all evil. Well, again, even within that, if that's true, there's going to be some that are good or neutral. Just there's always a balance. But just, also for me, it's not even trying to connect in with that, or, you know, there's a whole Draco constellation of Draco. You know, it might be something you want to look into if you don't know the shape of it or what the brightest star is, for a little fun work instead of homework. But for me, whenever I think of dragons, for me, I feel into more of like the galactic or world creating, massive creator dragons. That's just kind of what I, you know, resonate with. So again, supposedly there's a massive ones that are like galaxy size that help with creation of cosmos. I think that's pretty cool. But see what dragon like you click with. You know, are you into something that's like fire breathing and more tactile, or maybe ice breathing? And, you know, see what you think about that. I forgot to bring my books. There's some children's books that talk about dragons. It's Wings of Fire. That's a pretty good one. And that's, yeah, I guess that's about it. And Rita, you're always my great kind of like timekeeper, whether you knew it or not, because you popped up with your message and it's right when I want to wrap it up. So thank you. Rita Pita says, thank you for a wonderful show tonight, Varleigh. Have a great week. See everyone next weekend. So thank you, Rita, and thank you, everybody. And I wish the same for everyone as well. So we'll take Rita's wish and run with it. So best wishes to all. And until next time, tremendous peace and love. And take care, everyone. Bye.